Is the mage class in dungeons. Well, your main goal as a mage is to use right-click abilities on weapons to deal tons of magic damage. For that, you need lots of intelligence. It also has a special effect when you left-click, allowing you to attack from a range, but with usually less damage. So the goal for the best mage setup is to have a ton of intelligence while balancing that with survivability and ability/non-ability damage. Okay, so the first floor in dungeons is technically the entrance, but that is just so easy and so easy to complete that you really don't need a guide for completing the entrance floor in dungeons. So I am going to start with floor 1. First, let's talk about weapons. As a mage, you are going to want to have a weapon that gives intelligence, has a good right-click ability, and possibly some strength or crit damage for your left clicks. On floor 1, you have access to the best early game mage weapon, the Bonzo's Staff. This weapon is obtained through S+ chests on floor 1 or Bonzo Collection 250. It is hard to get if you are in something like Iron Man or a hardcore profile, but it's easily accessible to normal players, being only about 2 million coins from the auction house. This weapon is a rare rarity weapon and gives intelligence, and has a good right-click ability. Everything we need from a mage weapon. This is your first choice for a weapon and will last you a while. If you can't afford the Bonzo Staff when in the early game, invest around 5 to 10,000 coins into a Dreadlord Sword. This weapon has a right-click ability, gives intelligence, and gives a decent amount of crit damage. Yet again, everything we want from a mage weapon. So the best is the Bonzo Staff, but you can substitute a Dreadlord Sword for it if you are not wealthy enough. Now, let's talk about armor. For floor 1, survivability is not that key of a factor, but still plays a part in completing the floor. The armor you're going to want to use needs to give you intelligence and a good amount of survivability. I would suggest using full Wise Dragon armor for this floor of the catacombs. It gives a ton of intelligence and decreases the cost of your abilities, exactly what we need with mage armor. If with Wise Dragon Armor you are still dying, switch out the helmet with an item called the Bonzo's Mask. It basically gives you an extra life, allowing you to revive after you're dying once, with a cooldown of 360 seconds. It gives health, defense, and intelligence, and also gives revivability, along with a short period of invincibility, allowing you to be less squishy in dungeons. This is obtained via Bonzo Collection 50, and diamond, emerald, or obsidian chests on floor 1, or you can just buy it off of the auction house for around 250,000 coins. This mask is going to, like the Bonzo Staff, last you a while. If you cannot afford Wise Dragon Armor, go ahead and for around 10 to 15,000 coins, buy 3/4 Rotten Armor from the AH. This armor, paired with the Bonzo Mask, will give you a good amount of survivability and is pretty good for all early game dungeon runners. Of course, this is a secondary option for Wise Dragon Armor, so use that if you can. Now let's move on to utility-based items. Every class needs an aspect of the end. It's great for getting to places that you couldn't get to before, and escaping big attackers such as angry archaeologists or lost adventurers. Another utility item is the Zombie Sword. It is great for a class with a lot of intelligence, allowing you to heal up after being hit hard, increasing your survivability by a ton. Most definitely buy a Zombie Sword, but if you are willing to invest 700k into a better one, get the Ornate Zombie Sword. It heals more and costs less mana. Then there are casual dungeon items such as Spirit Leaves, Super Boom TNT, and a Diffuse Kit. All of these items will be used on every floor. What reforges do you want on your armor or weapons? Well, on your weapons you want to put Heroic, including your Aspect of the End and Zombie Sword. On your armor, you want to either use Wise or Necrotic. Wise is easier to get, just gotten by normal reforging. Necrotic is better though, but it is applied via a reforged stone called the Necromancer's Brooch, costing around 35k off of the auction house. For your talismans, you're going to want them reforged to Demonic. For a pet, always run with a legendary sheep pet, and level that up constantly. Once you have the money, give it the held item called the Textbook. Okay, now that we're done with floor 1, all the other floors will be much shorter to talk about. So, floor 2 is going to be a lot harder than floor 1 to complete. It requires a large amount of survivability, plus good damage to complete. You're going to want to use the same weapon, the Bonzo Staff, and make sure it's maxed out with enchantments for the lifesteal. For armor, you're going to want to replace the Rotten Armor / Wise Dragon Armor with Legendary Rarity Zombie Soldier Armor. So you want 3/4 Zombie Soldier Armor, the chestplate, the leggings, and the boots, plus a Bonzo's Mask. If you are having no problem with survivability, you can switch the Bonzo's Mask out with Dark/Shadow Goggles. These helmets give good damage, but have the problem of low survivability, so if you're going to use one, make sure it's 5-starred and hot potato booked, just to give you that survivability boost. If you are having trouble with survivability, you can replace your Zombie Soldier chestplate or leggings with perfect Tier 3 or 4 chestplate or leggings. These will give a little bit more survivability, and if you can get the chestplate and have some spare money, buy the reforged stone called the Giant's Tooth. As long as you have Mining 25, you can apply this to your chestplate, and it will give the Giant Reforge for more health and defense. For utility-based items, you're going to want what I mentioned before, but you may want to use a Withercloak sword. This sword has an ability that gives you temporary immunity to damage for a short period of time. This is only if you are really having trouble dying, but otherwise you don't need this sword. Make sure by now that your zombie sword is an ornate zombie sword. If you want to, you can use a voodoo doll, but just as an extra utility, and it's not absolutely necessary. For reforges, they are the same as floor 1, necrotic or wise on the armor, heroic on the weapons, and utility weapons, and demonic on your talismans. The next floor in Catacombs gives a new armor set that is very good for pretty much every class. Floor 3 is a very damage-based floor. You need just about the same survivability as floor 2, but you may need a little more. By now, you should have almost reached Catacombs 16. If not, get there first by running floor 2s. For weapons, you're going to want the same weapons of the Bonzo's Staff. But now you are starting to give stuff like the Enchanting Kit skill to at least 30 to 35, and your alchemy should be 40 to 50 for the ability damage and additional intelligence for the mage class. If you have the money, also invest in some tier 4 or tier 6 enchantments for your Bonzo staff, so you can get more damage, especially lifesteal. There is a new armor that becomes accessible after completing floor 3. It is called Adaptive Armor. This armor is great for every class for the early game dungeons, because it does what its name is. It adapts and gives different stats depending on your dungeon class. As mage, you will get an additional intelligence while wearing at least 3/4 adaptive armor. You're going to want to replace your zombie soldier armor with this new armor. If you cannot afford this, just stick with zombie soldier. Yet again, if you do not have enough survivability, exchange your chestplate with a perfect chestplate tier 4 or 5. And reforge it to giant if you are really in need of that extra health or defense. If you have the money, you can invest in boots called spirit boots. These boots are better than zombie soldier and adaptive, giving speed, strength, intelligence, and other good stats, as well as giving you the ability to escape from a dangerous fight. This item is around 2.5 million coins from the auctions. The utility-based items stay the same for this floor, but I will put a list on screen. Reforges also stay the same. Okay, now in dungeons comes the hard part. With floor 4 and above, survivability is key, but you also have to deal a ton of damage. To be able to do this with mage, you need a specific set of armor. I will talk about that while discussing armor. There is a new best mage weapon in floor 4. It is called the Spirit Scepter. This weapon is